we're going to be looking at 3D scanning, which is a difficult thing to do, obviously online, but I've done my best to try and get all the information we need. So you can see how it works, see the software as well, and some results. We're then going to look at Fusion and what Fusion can do with those files, those scan files. And then we're going to look at another bit of software called Meshmixer, a free bit of software. And we're going to import some files and have a little play around. You can do 3D collages, which are quite interesting in terms of what results we can get. And at the point round about 5 to 8, we're going to split into 2 groups. Group A will continue to work on Meshmixer with my support, and we'll carry on with you guys actually making your own model. Group B will go and watch the football if they wish. And if you want to do that, don't worry, because the recording's there and you can do that work over the weekend or any time up until next Wednesday, I'm sure. Okay, so what is 3D scanning? I'm going to ask a quick question. Has anybody done any 3D scanning? I know that I've done some scanning with Amanda, I believe. So apart from Amanda, has anyone else done any 3D scanning? Just type in an answer if you would. Nope. Nope. And Gareth, not successfully. Okay, and lots of no's there. So I'm gonna change that question. Has anybody played on one of these interactive games, such as like the Wii kind of games that they have, or the Xbox Connect games, where you have like a tennis game where you interact with the game itself? Has anybody kind of played on one of those? So we're getting lots of yeses there. Well, Rojan's come in, yes. Gareth has said yes as well. Andy Pierce, yes. So you've all done 3D scanning, because the first scanner I'm going to show you, you'll probably recognize as the actual bottom part of an Xbox 360, which actually fits underneath your TV screen. And the idea is that this box here is actually sending a signal out, which finds a point of reference, and then it comes back again. And the idea is that, you know, if you get too close to the screen, you disappear. If you go too far away from the screen, you disappear. You've actually lost track and you've gone out of the range of what the camera can actually see. So I actually like to think of this as just an ordinary handheld camera. But instead of just taking one shot, it can actually take lots and lots of shots. But it's not a photograph as such. What it's doing is it's sending a beam from the actual scanner itself to the end of my nose, and it goes straight back again. That's given a point of reference. This actual sense scanner here is not very accurate. It's accurate to, I think it's 0.1 of a millimeter. So every 0.1 of a millimeter, it will send a signal, and it will send a point back. And it will capture every single point on my face, sending signals back. And what we get from that is, you've probably seen this before, is a file of a 3-dimensional image that's been taken. That's saved, and that can be sent to a 3D printer like this. I've got another example here. Doesn't do her very well, but to be quite honest, even when you take the money right up and you pay a lot of money for scanners, they still can't do her. Because what we're looking at is something that, like mine, is a little bit 1950s, by the looks of it, and very grey. But it doesn't look individual hers. It will kind of make a kind of approximation of her, as you can see there. But it is still a very accurate image there, or 3D file that we can send to a 3D printer. Similarly, we can also send it to a milling machine. Now, this isn't a good example, because it's just in very low resolution, ordinary polystyrene, actually, rather modeling material, where you can see the face there again has been set into a block, and this has been milled and carved away. And finally, I think my favorite piece, for some reason, this came out really well, and just looks like a ceramic figurine, really, but a very, very detailed scan. This is a color printer, which we don't have anymore. It's old tech, really. And that's an interesting thing. The technology goes out so quickly. The scanner that I just showed you is my personal favorite, to be honest, that I've been using for many, many years. We opened the Fab Lab 7 years ago, getting on to 8 years ago. And, oh, that's great, resolution 0.9. Thank you. At 0.5, is that? XY spatial resolution. Thank you.
Half a meter.
Yeah, that's great. So half a meter, right about there, and we're actually getting that 0.9. I said 0.1. It's roughly the similar kind of thing. So every 0.9 it sends signals back. This is out of date now. It's not supported anymore. So I'm going to show you this as an example in a minute, and it won't be successful. I'm not expecting it to be, but it does give you the idea of how a scanner works. So let's actually do that. If I actually share my screen, I'm actually going to go into a bit of software called Sense. Obviously, it comes with the Sense scanner. Oh, it did. Built it right. And there we have Sense. It opens up like every other bit of software that comes with a machine. And I'll just follow the instructions as it opens. I'm hoping you can still see and hear me. Excellent. Okay, so it's asking me what I want to scan. This actually scans people, faces, that kind of thing. It doesn't scan objects very well. It's low resolution. Everything looks like it's been in a fire if you try and do an object. I'm going to go for person, and then it asks me the full body or head. I'm going to go for just the head. And now as I pick up this scanner, I'm hoping that it will see me. Now, it's not very clever. It doesn't do glasses. It actually paints them on the side of the on the actual face itself. So I'm not going to do my full scan. I'm just going to hit, you can see there's a start scan thing there. I'm just going to hit that with my mouse and stay very still and move my camera. And I've lost tracking there as I was expecting. So I'm just going to finish. And what we'll get is just a tiny part of my face there as we move around. But you can see the idea that if I went all around, I mean, I can't do this on my own, because what I used to do is I used to walk around the object very, very carefully. And if you go slightly out one way or another, you lose tracking, and it just stops as it did there. But this has got enough, I think, to be able to turn around. You can see that it is basically like a photograph, which is 3 dimension. And if you go all the way around, you can hit this thing down here, which says, I'm going to put my glasses on again, solidify, and it will make it into a solid. My nose is all over the place there. So what I might do is just clean that up. We've got tools here, such as erase. And with this erase on, we can just take parts here and erase it. So I can just draw down there. You can see how easy it is. With the touch screen as well, you can just use your finger and get rid of things. If I click off that, we can move around and we can see there's not a great deal happening there, but I'm going to get rid of some of that as well down here. It's not worth really tidying this up because it's not the full thing and we're not going to get much at all, but you can see the idea. It does give you that the image here that we can work on, and there's areas where we can clean up and use the tools here as well. If I hit solidify, it's just going to make this into a solid as best it can. It'll probably be like a tile with the face sticking out of it. So I'm just going to hit that and we'll see what happens. Obviously, if you've gone all the way around, the idea is where all the holes are, it just fixes them automatically, and it's not really a particularly great thing it's done there. So I'm just going to Control Z back out again so you can see the general idea. So I have to make that into a solid really before I can save it as a file. So that's not going to happen in this case. I'm just wondering if I can show you anything else in here. If we wanted to, if we had the full thing, we'd just move on to next, and there's trim tools and touch up tools and so on. And there we come to save at the end. Come down here, and of course we save it as an OBJ or a STL, which are the files that we're used to. So again, I wasn't expecting this to be perfectly, well, I certainly wasn't expecting it to work, because this machine is no longer supported. The software's glitchy, and it's just not working at all. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to close this down, stop sharing for a second, and show you this. It's on a tripod at the moment, but it does come straight off. And this is a more expensive scanner, and it's called the Einscan Pro, if I actually put it that way. The scanner that I showed you was £300 about 8 years ago, 7 years ago, something like that. And it came with the software. And I thought that was amazing because scanners are expensive. But it is just an Xbox Connect with about £70 worth of upgrading. And that's no longer, as I say, it's no longer supported. So if you want to buy a new scanner, it'd be around the same price, but it'd be a much better scanner. But iPhones have got a scanner in them now. And that's the thing about the cloud, you know, that using processing power when we're using Fusion 360 of a supercomputer in the cloud. And it's the same with scanning. You've got a free scanner now with a new iPhone. So you can go around with your mobile phone. It will send that file off to the cloud and it comes back as an STL. So it's got incredibly cheap, really, for that kind of low resolution scan. This is a high resolution scanner. So as we said, it was I said 0.1, but it was 0.9, I think it was it? Yeah, 0.9, sorry, millimeters. This one is much more. I think this is like 0.01 or something ridiculous like that. So it's sending a lot more of those pulses that find points, data points on the surface, and then it returns back to the scanner. And I've made a film on how it works. And I'm just going to have to make sure I put this down properly, otherwise I might damage it, so that's fine. Now, I did ask in session 2, I think it was, if anybody would send me something to scan. And Vicky, thank you, Vicky, sent in our skull that we're going to be using today. It's quite small, as you see, so it's quite a trick to get that scanned, as you imagine. I'm just going to let you see the quality of the piece itself, because we're going to look at this in Fusion 360 and just see how accurate it is. And I don't think we'll see virtually any difference to what you see here and what you'll see on the screen when we come to it. And also, Amanda Lehman sent this through, which is probably really tricky to do because it's glass. And the idea of 3D scans is, of course, the scanner will come and it'll hit my face and it'll go back and it'll pick up really well. Thank you, Owen, for the spec on that. So it hits my face, it comes back again, and it's fantastic until it comes to my glasses. They're transparent, so it doesn't come back at all. Reflected surfaces, if it hits metal or something, it comes back. It doesn't really like that as well. It confuses the data that's coming along. So when it comes to glass, it's generally regarded as impossible. We do have a fix for that, so I've made a small film about that as well. Okay, so I'm going to show that film. So I'll present my screen again. I've got no sound on this, so I'll just stop every now and then explain what's happening. So I've just opened up. If we just go back a tiny bit there, there's this Einscan kind of icon here, which is the software. You can see where, and then click on that, and then this opens up, and it's asking me which device to actually choose. It's not the Pro Plus, it's just the Pro, and we hit next, and we just follow the instructions. It's asking me, are you going to do a hand scan over the tripod? I need to do the tripod on this, because if I try and do it by hand, it moves and I lose scanning like we did before. So I'm going to open a project, and it's just like a folder, really, and I'm going to give it a name. So I'm going to put it onto my desktop, and because I've already got the small skull, because I had to make 3 films, I think, one of the desktop and one of the actual film itself. You can see small skulls already there. So I'm going to call this small skull 2 or 3 even, and save that. And that's just given me a destination to put the file when I've finished. And you can choose for non-textured or a textured scan. And I'm going to go for the textured scan. I want a textured surface. As you can see, there's a turntable, and our skull is placed on that turntable. You can see the scanner set up, and it has to be a particular distance away, as Owen mentioned. And we hit apply now, and At this point, we're going to have to start the scan. You can see there's the box in the middle with a little kind of indication of where it is and what it can see. Where you can see red, it seems to be pretty good. And there's 24 turntable steps, which is very, very fast. Normally I'd do something like, I don't know, about 30, 36, 38. So you can actually have less of those images. And then we hit play on the right-hand side, the start scan. And then it has to verify when we click on that. Now that means that if it's too close or too far, it'll say can't be verified. But if it is just the right distance away, it will tell you that it's about to verify, and you'll start to get the image, the first image. And so you'll see that about to start now, hopefully. And there you can see the lights from the scanner there, taking that first shot and extracting the data points. And there you see the first image. That's just one image like we did before. It's hollow at the back, but it's going to go on now to turn 24 times and take another scan, taking all those points, which goes to the object and back again to form what's going to be our file. Now this takes about an hour in total to do one side and then to do the other side. Probably less, probably about 40, 50 minutes. So I've condensed this down to 10 minutes. So in actual fact, we're not going to do all 24. We're going to jump ahead as if we've done them all. So when the 24 images have been taken, or 24 scans have been taken, it'll be halfway through and it will actually tell me that it's time to edit, and it's just about started there. You can see that the screen, something's flashing there. It should go onto the screen in a minute. There you go. And it says edit tools. And so what I've got to do is, you can see we've got the skull, but we've also got the turntable. So I've got to remove that turntable. And what you can do is you can highlight it and then basically go to delete. You won't see this software, by the way. This is the software we use. I'm just demonstrating it. So what we're going to do now is, if I hold the right button, I think which is Shift, and then highlight, it should turn red, and then I can just go to the bin there and delete it. And then it's deleted. A bit of a lag. Delete the rest of it there. But just before I do, I'm just going to tip that slightly so you can see. There you go. I've just highlighted everything on that side of the turntable. I'm going to hit that as well. So now I'm happy with that, but if we zoom in, you can see, just like the scan I just took, it's partial. It's not the whole thing, because it hasn't been able to get the scan from underneath it. So the idea of this, and I love this actually, you can turn it over and do another scan, and it will automatically align them together, hopefully. So all we've got to do is click the tick there to say we're happy. And then we've got continue scan, which is there on the right-hand side. So all we've got to do, of course, is turn this over. And of course, it's the same probably both sides, but it is worth turning over. And if you've got very complex objects, it's really good. Once you've turned it over, and as you can see, just turn it over on the top left there, we can hit continue scan, and it will start again with a completely fresh half of the model. It has to verify again in the same way. Just takes that first image, and there we have the first of our next lot of 24, the other side of the scan. So that's still verifying. And there we have the object being scanned on the other side. So hopefully I've thought to actually gone through and missed and edited out the 24 turn-ins, and we're going to go to the editing part again. Shouldn't take too long before I realize that this is quite dull. And there we have it. this is still being seen. You can see parts of it, and there we have edit tools. So what I've done is I've jumped forward 24 scans, and now we have the second part of it done. And we have to do the same thing. We've got to get rid of the turntable. So what we've got, of course, is a left-hand part of the skull and a right-hand part of the skull. So again, press Shift, and we'll get rid of one side, and the other. Shift and turn around with the mouse to get the other. And then we can zoom in to get rid of the rest of it. Okay. Hit delete. There's another little bit just hanging on the side there. I'll just get rid of that. Right. Now I'm happy with that. It's given us the other side. So of course we can click that tick where it says click here. Say I'm happy with it. And now it automatically, it knows it's got two halves. It's trying to figure out how to put it together. And 9 times out of 10, it does it automatically. If it doesn't, what we have to do is physically kind of put it very close with kind of colored pins almost. So I'm just looking around there to see, yep, that looks pretty good to me. But what we've got to do now, of course, is this is just two halves. We've got to make this into a watertight model. So we have, just having a quick look there. Look inside the eyes, because this is the problem. Oh yeah, so this one is a line. The next one is delete and pause and so on. Now this one, where it says mesh, we're going to click on this. And this is where we decide whether to have a watertight model or an unwatertight model. I'm going to go for watertight, and I'm also going to go for low detail. Now, low detail in this software is massive. If you went to medium or high, I don't think my PC will actually cope with it. I think it'll crash because I am actually using the processor on my machine for this particular bit of software. So what we've done is we've decided it's going to be watertight, and we've created the lowest resolution that this software will give us. But don't forget, this bit of software, this bit of equipment here in terms of the scanner is very, very high res indeed. It gives us a scan which is very, very complicated, and we're going to look at that in a minute. So it's just finished there, ready to save the scan, and I'm just looking inside and around. The inside cavities are always a difficult thing with the scanner, but this seems to have got inside the eyes really well. There are shadows there that confuse him, but it doesn't seem to change the shape. But inside the eyes, you can see that letter S, and I can show you the actual thing itself. I don't know if you can see this or not, but hopefully you'll be able to see there's a little S inside there. So it's actually picked up all of the detail really quite well. Now I'm choosing now to save as an OBJ, but we've also, if we save that, we can save as STL as well. And that's just telling me that it's a 1-to-1 scale. So it's going to be saved at the scale of the object, because I can scale it up and down at this point if I wanted to. I think that's it. So what I've done is I've saved the scan. I'm just going to stop that and open up my there we go. Stop presenting for a second. I've saved that scan, and I've asked Sophie if she'll send it out to you all. So hopefully you'll have an STL of that skull. And I'm going to open it up in Fusion 360, and I suggest we all do that as well. So if you wouldn't mind opening up Fusion 360 now, if you haven't already opened it up, and then bring in the scan. I'm going to do the same, but I wanted to show you quite a successful scan I did earlier, which is a little bit more complicated, and it's a trainer. And as we can see, the shoelaces I thought came out beautifully. So we can zoom in there and we can see.
Can't see anything yet, mate.
You can't see that, sorry. I'm going to come back. Can you see that now?
Certainly can, man. That is
Excellent.
a one sorry looking trainer.
Oh, well, the trainer itself is very sorry, but I think the scan is fabulous. If I kind of turn it around, you can actually see the logo at the bottom there.
It's
And
very
this is
sweet.
one of the first scans I did with this machine, to be honest, when I first got it, and I was just made up with the laces, I think, in terms of what we can do there. So I'm going to open up a new design. So we've all got this now. And the way to bring in a mesh, hopefully you've got the STL already, is to go to Insert, which is on the top row towards the end. It's the last but one to the right there. And if we click on Insert and drop down, we're actually looking to insert a mesh. Now, we're going to talk about mesh a little bit more in a minute, but if you come down to Insert Mesh and click on that, that will allow you to search for the STL that was sent out to you. And I've got it down here and open there. I get embarrassed sometimes because I can't actually see. That's brilliant. Now, you'll have a skull that comes in, but it won't be in relation to our cube, our navigation cube. So I'm not going to click OK yet to accept it. What I'm going to do is look at the cube and just click on front, so I can see front. That's looking at it from the front, and I can see there's a kind of thing to turn it this way. I'm going to turn that round. I'm going to go to the little triangle above the word front, and it'll show me the top. And at that point, I'll use this tool to turn it round. So I'm looking at the top of this skull, and I can go around and look at the front again. Still needs a little bit of a change there. I think I'm quite happy with that, actually. And when you're happy that we're looking at the front and we can turn it around, that's the left-hand side, that's the back, that's the right-hand side, and the front. Doesn't have to be perfect, just roughly, I think it's fine. And then I'm going to click OK to accept it. And now we have our skull that we've 3D scanned in front of us. Apologies, it's a little macabre. It's just a demonstration. But we can look at that, and we can look at the object here, and we can turn it around there. And we can see it's not bad in terms of the... Consider I did it quite quick with only 24 turns. I could have turned that right up to maybe 40 odd and have a much more accurate scan. But in terms of the lines of the skull and so on, I think we've got quite a good result there. So I'm just going to check. I can't actually see if you guys are having any problems. So I'm just going to check if everyone's okay at this point and if you've got the file open.
Does it matter if my skull is blue?
No. If I actually come up now and open up bodies and click on it, mine's blue as well. It's because I've highlighted it. If I click anywhere in dead space, it goes back and it's no longer blue. So no, it doesn't matter. It just means it's highlighted at the moment. So a good point.
It's like a blue mesh though. Rojan says
okay.
that hers is purple.
Yeah, okay. Well, if we've got purple things, I'm not quite sure. But what we're going to do is looking at this at the moment, I'm going to go to display settings where it says visual style. I'm going to make sure we're on shaded. And what we should see is something like this. And then when we highlight, it's blue. And then we go off it again. And there we have it in shaded. It's really important, though, that we also look at this visual style in wireframe. Because I think you looked at something as well, didn't you? You looked at environment, did you? Dark sky and grey room and so on last week, didn't you, Owen?
Correct.
Yeah. So it may be something to do with the change through there. But I'm going to make sure I'm on shaded. But then I can go to wireframe, which is the fourth one down. And this is what I want to show you, actually, is the wireframe. And if I click on it, I've got a blue wireframe. Somebody had a purple one. I'm not sure why. But I would imagine it might be something to do with the fact that we looked at environments last week. But basically what we've got here is the points that we were talking about, and it actually creates triangles. So a mesh is basically the file that we take out from the 3D scanner is a mesh. When we save our models from Fusion 360 or from any CAD program, we save it as an STL or an OBJ, and in both cases what happens is we create a mesh in exactly the same way as the scanner has, but it won't be as complicated as this. This, remember, is our low res mesh from our scanner, and if we zoom in there on a part, we'll see just how complicated that mesh actually is. Imagine it as chicken wire. You imagine how detailed this chicken wire actually is as we go in and out. So I'm just checking that we're all happy that we've got a object in front of us at mesh settings so we can see it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to copy this and make a second one. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go over to scan 3 on the left hand side where it says underbodies. We can close it and open it. I'm going to click on scan 3 and it'll highlight the whole skull. If we right click, we want to go to edit feature down here. Actually, before we do that, we've also got move and copy. I'm just wondering if I can hit move and copy. This is the same tool we had when we brought the file in. Apologies if you went to edit tools. We'll just have to click on the arrow to come back out again. Do it again, and then we'll go to just move copy. And we can move this around in the same way as we did when we brought the file in. But if you notice, all the way down the bottom of this move copy dialog box down here, we've got create copy, little box there. If you click it, so we've got a tick in there, and then simply drag it to the right, we should end up with 2 skulls if we click OK at the bottom there. But we do have to tick that little create copy box there. So we should now have 2. Notice we have scan 3, which we can turn on and off, and scan 3 with 1 in brackets. So that's my copy that I've just produced. So I'm going to wait for a second and just make sure everyone's okay. I can actually click the wheel on my mouse and just move slightly to the left there. So I've got 2 skulls, which of course we can change, as we said, our visual style there to shaded so we can see them both. And we can go back to visual style wireframe, which is what I want to show you. This is the point where I want to reduce that mesh, because you'll probably find in many cases, in fact, this evening we probably find this as well. If you go to Thingiverse and download certain files and it's a scan, it may well cause the software to crash because the file's too big. It is possible to dramatically reduce the mesh amount, let's say, in the file size in the same way, without actually affecting the aesthetic look of the object too much. And that's what I want to do now.
Vicky's saying that it won't let her copy.
Okay, so let's just go back to see why that's the case.
The create copy isn't in like solid black writing.
There's 2 ways of doing it, actually. You can go to the scan and right click and just go to copy here, and I don't think it works. Whereas if you go to the scan and do move and copy from there, so
that's what I did.
From it, move and copy there, and then there should be a create copy.
That create copy is like ghost writing. It's like a shadow rather than being black.
Okay. It could be, if you just right click on it, you get a move copy there, and it doesn't work very well. Whereas if you click it and then come somewhere over here and go move copy, you get the dialog box. I wonder if that might make any difference.
No. Sorry.
It's not made any difference at all.
No, it's made the box shorter and there's no create copy in it anymore.
That's interesting. I think what I might do, just because of that, is start again. I'm just going to delete that one.
It seems to be the general consensus that the move copy function is not working amongst the
well,
participants.
I'm going to cancel that then, and I might suggest that it might be something to do with the type of license we have, but I can't see it myself. I'm not quite sure why that would be the case.
I think I need to try and get hold of that file. I believe Sophie sent it to everyone, so I should be able to pick that up in my email.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'll load it and have a look.
I don't think it matters that we have. What I might do is just take a screenshot of this, and we'll work on that one. So if I just delete that one, so I don't want to be doing stuff that you guys can't do, so I'm going to delete it. So hopefully I'll be just left with the one as you've got. I'm just going to take a quick snip of this. It'll do just the same for us. It's just basically a quick snip of that. It's just an image that I'm going to take. And I'm going to leave that so we can refer to it. So every now and then we'll have a look at the snip and we'll put it next to our object and we can see what's done, and we'll still be able to do everything. It's just not quite sure why you haven't got access to that function, and I have. I'm not quite sure why that is. So what we'll do is we'll take this image now, and I want to reduce the mesh. So the mesh is very, very complicated. So hopefully you'll be able to do this. I'm not quite sure if we will or not, but I'm going to click on it. I'm going to go in dead space over here and right click, and I'm going to go to edit feature and left click on edit feature. Now that we're in, we've pressed edit feature, we should be in this mesh tools editing area. So our kind of icons at the top have changed. Now we're in mesh. I don't really want to do anything with this palette that's opened up there. I'm going to ignore it. But what I want to do is go to modify, because I want to change it. It's got to be under modify, and I'm going to look for a reduced mesh tool. So you can see the second one down is reduce. So I'm going to left click on reduce, and I'll get another box immediately, and here it is, reduce. I'm going to close the other one, this mesh selection, so that I've just got this one here. Now I can reduce by proportion, so a percentage, or I could reduce by face count, and I actually want to go to face count. And adaptive, it says the type. Adaptive means it will adapt when it goes around corners, when it goes to areas that are more complex. It will adapt that kind of remeshing. If I just click on there, we've got uniform, so it will basically put, it will kind of reduce uniformly, let's say. I'm going to leave it as adaptive. And the face count, actually, before we do anything, it says body face groups at the top here and select. So I'm going to go over here, and I could select it with this little ball thing, but it's easier just to click on scan 3, and we've selected everything there. And it's advising us that we can come down to 78,992. If we go right to the top here, we're on 315,000. I'm assuming that that is kind of the higher range of the mesh that we've got, and we can go down to 0. I'm actually going to go to, from the 315,000, round about halfway, just above halfway, 150,000 and 150,460, but round about 150,000. I'm going to leave it at that. And I'm going to click OK. So I'm reducing this file size by half. Let's click OK there. And watch what happens to that mesh. You can see it's lightened. The chicken wire type, let's kind of zoom in a little bit so we can see it there. Move to the side there. It's still there, it's still complicated, but it's a lot lighter than it was. In fact, if we come down to look at the front again, and we just have a look at our snip to check the difference, you can see it's actually lighter. There's a lot less triangles than there is in there. I'm going to do it a second time, but before I do, no, I'm just going to cancel that. Before I do, I'm just going to have a little peek at what it looks like in terms of looking at the display setting, the visual style, and back to shaded again. you can see there's hardly any difference in the finished object. Difficult to see without having one next to us. And there will be a slight difference in it, but it's actually not too bad at all. So I'm actually going to go back now to wireframe, and I'm going to do that one more time to front there. And I'm going to go to modify and reduce. And I'm going to select my scan, and 37,000 might be a little bit. I'm going to about half again, 80,000. And click OK. Maybe just a touch down, 73,000. Click OK. And that should reduce it, and it's reduced it a lot more. We might have lost definition around the teeth there, but I'm just going to have a peek. Our visual start shaded again. No, it's still pretty good. What we've got now is a skull, which will not crash when you try and do things with it, because the mesh size and therefore the file size is an awful lot less. Okay, so we can save this file as well, can't we? This is a reduced mesh version of what we had, because I think if we bring it into Meshmixer as the original file, and we try to add it to something else that might be a huge file, the whole thing might crash. So I'm actually going to save this now. I'm going to go to scan 3 there. I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to save. I think I might have to actually come out of our finish direct editing up here. I'm still in my mesh tools, so I'm just going to click on the arrow there. Let's go back to our scan 3 and right click, and now we can save it. Come down and save as mesh. There. See what else we've got to choose from. Yep, save as mesh. Our format there is, we can go for STL or 3MF. I'm going to hit STL actually. So it's an STL I'm saving. And I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to call this now skull, small skull. I'm going to put remesh, but you could put edit or whatever you want really. And I'm going to put that onto my, well, I'll leave it in the small skull files there and save. So I've got 2 versions of the same skull, one that we brought in and one that's been reduced in terms of mesh. And save. And there we have it. Any questions?
So Ian, I think I might have found a potential solution.
Excellent.
In that. So I've put it in the message, but instead of using the insert function, if you upload it into Fusion itself, so on the left-hand side where you've got those 9 small grey cubes there, that data panel, you can upload directly into whatever folder you want.
Yeah.
And then open it from there. So I've done that. I've tried that successfully.
Yeah.
But I need someone else, one of the participants, to have a go at that as well to see if that works.
Well, I could just try it now, really. I just come down here and that's not easy.
Okay, so Abby says it does. Obviously, the downside with doing it this way is that you're not free to align it prior to uploading it. So with the insert function that Ian was using, you can align it. There are other ways of aligning such objects, but it's a little bit more long-winded.
Yeah, we did have a look when we kind of move things around as well. We could just use the move tool without the copy, and then we can actually rotate things around and move them around in the same way. But as Owen says, it is a bit tricky because it doesn't actually put it near the origin point. Sometimes it can put it quite a fair distance away, I think, at times. I'm not quite sure. Apologies for that, because I wasn't quite sure, because I tried this a number of times myself, of course, before we kind of presented, and it worked every time for me. So I'm not quite sure why it's working on mine. It might be because I've had the license longer. I'm not quite sure, or it might be slightly different license. Right. So. Right, so we've saved that now. I'm going to double check it's actually saved on my there. And it was in the small skull files, and there's my small skull remesh. That's great. So what would happen if we want to try and scan something that's reflective or glass or something like that? Amanda and I, we've already scanned a piece of glass, which actually came out quite well, I think. I'm just going to show you another quick film. Again, it's very, very reduced. I'm going to take away the skull now and then bring in the glass piece that Amanda sent. And the problem with this is that it's really going to mess up the scan because it'll go straight through it, reflect as well. I know there's sand inside there, but we wouldn't get a good result. So anything that we're not sure about, anything with the reflective surface, we've actually got a spray. Got it here actually, and it's a developer. It says on here SKD-S2 from Magnaflux, and we found this is brilliant because as you spray it, it doesn't look like much is happening because it's wet. But when it dries, it gives us a beautiful white matte finish, and we can spray any object. So that means we can scan any object, basically. We're not restricted to matte surfaces. You can see we've got to cover that all the way around. And I did actually, funnily enough, miss a little strip, which you can see in the scan, it didn't come out particularly well. So it's starting to dry, as you can see, in parts there. And I'm going to jump forward a little bit because I'm not going to kind of watch this thing dry. It's a little bit long-winded. So that goes onto the turntable. And I'm hoping that I kind of fast forward in a second on here to show you it dry. You see it's starting to dry there. It's a little bit wet just in the middle there. And I'll kind of move that forward slightly. There you go. And there it is, completely dry. And that will take a really nice, easy scan. I did try and just scan it once without turning it around, but it kind of put like a weird kind of solid at the bottom there. So it's still worth scanning it this way and then putting it on its side and scanning again, and it will align the top and the bottom rather than try and scan it without the base, because it really doesn't like that. So again, 40 minutes worth of scanning there to get the file. So Amanda's file is ready as well. Right, so what we've got now is we have our scan ready to go in, and we can also look at what we've got now. 3D scan into Fusion 360. Okay, so I'm going to go back into Fusion, and we're also going to look at what else we can do with this. I'd like to show you rendering again. I know we've done a little bit of rendering, but I'd also like to show you how to make an animation from Fusion. So it's not necessarily about scanning this, it's anything in Fusion really. And this should take us to a break at about 5 to 7, hopefully. So what we're going to do is we're going to try a number of materials. We can use the skull, we can use anything you've got as well. We can go on to do other objects as well. But we're going to give it material, we're going to give it a little bit of light, and then we're going to take it into our animation program. We're each going to produce a film of this object. So if you'd like to work with me, just double check everyone's still okay with this. Just shout out if you've got any problems. I'm going to go from where it says design at the top left there. I'm going to left click on that, and I'm going to drop down to render. Now we have quickly gone into rendering before, and as we turn around our box there, I'm just going to go and click that home there, the little kind of house there. And I'm going to go over to the first icon there, which is appearance. Now, I've tried glass, I've tried metals. You can try whatever you like on this, but I'm going to go for wood because I found a really nice bit of wood in this library. So I'm going to drop down now. And if I go down this one as well. I can see wood, solid. So I'm going to go for that. And that, you can't see it, I'm going to have to drop down now. Just give me different types of wood. I want finished wood. And it's the 3D cherry, I think. I wrote it down, which one I'm going to take, actually. I think it was 3D cherry glossy, actually. Yeah, I think it was. Now, you probably find that I don't have to download this because I've already taken it. So let's say you want this one below it, and it's got this little download there. Before you can actually attach this to my object, it's not going to work. You have to actually go over the download button there and hit that. When it's downloaded, that's the point you can then drag it to it. But I'm going to go through this cherry glossy here, drag that over to the object and take my finger off the mouse. And there we have a wonderful piece of wood. I'm just going to zoom into and move around. And that's the choice I'm going to make in terms of my first material to render. So just having a look at what we've got here. We've got stone, we've got plastics, paints. I don't know what's in other there. There's paint realistic. So let's go into other there and see what base materials. Emissive is interesting because you could probably have something that actually is actually emitting the light as well for design work. Base materials into mirrors, so you could change that to a mirror. Or I say I quite like the wood actually, but you can see how easy it is. I'm going to metal here and see what we get. There's a fantastic old kind of copper, I think it is, in here. It's patinaed. There's certainly lots and lots of different things we've got in there. Okay, I'm going to drop back down again to my wood that I had. I'm just going to close some of these actually. And it's the 3D. And you can replace one with another as we see there. So when you're happy with your material, you can do one or two of these, as many as you want really. Oh, by the way, thank you, Vicky, for allowing us to use this scan. None of us were going to kind of use this for sales or anything like this. This is your file, and let's say we're not going to do anything with this. It's just demonstration purposes, really. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to close my material library. I'm going to go to the next one across, which is scene settings. Which is scene settings there. I'm not going to put a scene behind it. I just want to move the brightness up ever so slightly, not too much, just a little bit there. You can go far too much. Around about there, I think. I'm going to click close there. So I've just given it a bit of brightness as well. I think we can take away the shadows as well, but I'm not too worried about that now. And it looks quite nice and realistic. So when we're happy with that, I'm going to take it through. I'm going to go back to the home. So it's at the home position there. And then I'm going to go from render into animation, which is the next one down. So again, design is there. That's our design where we were before. We can go down to render. And the next one down is animation. So we're going to animate this particular thing. Now, what I want to do is I want to show you this, and you can copy me if you wish. But then I want you to make your own animation, zooming in, zooming out, make it do what you want it to do. Well, basically what I'm going to do is from this point, I'm just going to move, I think, my, because it's actually given me a 1 second lapse already. I've not done anything yet, but in that 1 second, I'm just going to move my object ever so slightly. Now, I took my time moving that, but the film will put that in 1 second. I'm now going to kind of go 5 seconds. You can choose how long this next part's going to be. Maybe I'll make it 4 seconds. So I'm going to click on 4, and that cursor has moved over to 4 seconds. If I just hit front, basically it's moved itself. but it's going to do that in 4 seconds. I can play this from scratch. You can see down the bottom here, we've got a little play. And you can see it moving up and then around. And I've decided where it's going to go from. Notice that I started from the home position because it could start anywhere really. And at this point, I just want it to revolve around. So I'm going to go and I'm going to say in 4 seconds from here, we're on second 4, aren't we? So I'm going to go to 8. And in those 4 seconds, I'm simply going to press the arrow that's to the left of my box. And it's going to do that in 4 seconds. Again, we can play that. So that's what we had before, go into the front, and now it will turn in 4 seconds to the left. This is a bit parrot fashion, I'm afraid. I'm going to do the same thing again on the 12th second, another 4 seconds along. I'm going to left click on that, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to touch the arrow to the left, and it will just turn to the back. That will be done in 4 seconds as well. One more, I'm going to go to 16 and do exactly the same thing again to there. So if we play that again, we'll see this gradual movement coming around, moving around, all the way around, revolving around to face that opposite way. This next bit I'm going to do, I'm actually going to do freehand. And you can do a certain amount freehand, but if you try and turn all the way around, sometimes it just goes freaky. It doesn't know what to do because it's trying to do too much. So in 4 seconds, I'm going to turn around by, instead of just clicking anything, I'm going to move it myself. And as I'm doing that, I'm going to zoom in slightly. Let's see what that looks like. I'm going to play that. I could have just played that last bit, I'm sorry. I'm thinking about it. I was a bit scrappy when I moved as well. It kind of went in and out. So I'm not sure if it'll compensate for that. I think it will. So here we have it, zooming in. And you can see, even though I moved really scrappily and it kind of zigzagged slightly when I actually did it, it kind of smooths the whole thing out. And if we want to drop that up or down, we can certainly do that. But I might just finish at that point actually. So we got our film, and once you're happy with it, and we can go anywhere you want, of course. What we can do now is we can publish it. And as you can see on the top here, we can go along, and the last one on the top there is publish video. And I want to put this onto my desktop, so I'm just going to hit publish. And look what we have here, all storyboards, and I'm just going to click OK. And it should give me the chance to save this, title it, and I'll call it School Film. And down the bottom here, we can click Save to my computer, and that's going to put it into school files where it was before. Or I could put it onto my desktop if I wish. So you can change that, and you can basically put it where you want it to be. But this is going into the school files folder. A school film, and as you can see, it's an AVI, which will pretty much open in anything, and we'll just hit save. And hit save here, I think. And there we have it publishing. It takes a bit of time, and obviously the longer your film, the longer it's going to take to progress as well. But I love this in terms of a way of showing information. You could actually export this film to show to a client. And if you really wanted to, you could show the mesh file as well. I'll show you that in just a sec. It's nearly done. Okay, that should be complete. So if I drop out of my Fusion completely and just go into my files there, I should find a film. I'm hoping an AVI film, and there it is, school film. I'm going to click on that, and this is what we just produced. Watch that as well. I think it's impressive personally. And this could be any one of your designs. Okay, that's our film sorted. Back into Fusion. So I'm going to leave it to you. We've got a few minutes now. Got about 15 minutes, let's say, before we take a break. I'd like you to actually do the same thing again. You could use the skull, or you could bring any file that you've got in, and I'd like you to assign it to a material and then make a quick film of that. If we've got time to do that, that would be great. So I'm going to come out of here, and I'm going to do my shoe, actually. I'll do the same thing again. You can follow me in terms of what I'm going to do, or you can just bring whatever you like. You can work on the skull and put a different material on, but it'd be great if you could make a small film as well. So I'm just going to stop for a second and just ask if anyone's got any questions, or if anyone's feeling as if I'm going too fast.
Ian, now that I've uploaded it rather than insert it, I don't have an edit and a left click. Like,
Okay. I'm bit kind of unaware of this because I've not actually done this myself by kind of uploading it. So there's no edit option. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, I've clicked on the bodies, I've clicked on the skull,
Yeah.
and then where you edited it to do the mesh,
Yeah.
it's got no edit.
Okay. So I'm going to go back into my design area here.
Are there no mesh tools on the top of the screen? So you've got solid, surface, form.
So you can see my top of my screen here at the moment. I've got all my standard tools there. If I go to scan, I'm going to right click and go to edit feature. And then they change the, did you not have edit feature?
I've not got edit feature that I can find.
Okay. In that case, let's try it a
Yeah,
different way.
likewise.
I'm going to come back into a standard thing here, and I'm just going to select all, and then I'm going to right click, and I've got edit feature here. It's probably the same kind of thing, but just see if that works.
Right, can you do that again?
Yeah, all I'm going to do is I'm going to come out. I'm in my design area, and I've just drawn a square by left clicking around and highlighted everything, and then just right clicked, and I've got edit feature there, and that takes me in as well. Any luck with that?
I cannot find the edit feature.
No.
Yeah, it's not there, Ian.
Okay.
However,
I'm going mad, thank God.
no, yeah,
No, it's not you at all. I think it's a license. I think it's
possibly, but what I'm asking is at the top of the screen. I mean, you've got direct mesh editing. That's something I don't have, but at the top of the screen where it says solid surface form, there hopefully should be a tab which is mesh.
Yeah.
So it's between form and sheet metal, and there are, well, a limited number of mesh tools within that for the likes of remeshing.
mesh here.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, and we're in it there. That makes perfect sense. Thank you. I just came back to solid, which is our. If we look over the top, we can look in our design mode. Solid there, then surface, and then the third one over is mesh, and there's mesh tools there. So we should be able to highlight it here, and then modify, and then go to reduce there. Is that worked?
Yes.
It has. Brilliant. So we can get to it from there. Thanks ever so much, Owen.
That's all right. Curiously enough, though, you seem to have a lot more mesh edit tools.
I'm not sure why.
Have.
But maybe because I've been in the mesh. I've been in the mesh environment quite a lot recently. Maybe some of it's just pinned itself somehow to my workflow. I'm not quite sure why that is. But it's also might be I might have an older. I don't know, because it should upload automatically, Fusion, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the other reason why that may be the case is that under preferences, like where your name is on the top right,
You got it. I think I've probably gone up to preferences sometime in the past here, and in there you can actually change an awful lot in there. And I probably highlighted mesh tools that are in there. So thanks so much for that. It would have been years ago probably that I've done that. So there's mesh tools here. Can't really see anything here that's there that I would have changed.
These might be more of like plugins.
Yeah, it could be. I'm just going to cancel that anyway. But the main thing is that Owen has found us a perfect way to get into those mesh tools, and it's in the design area, and it's the third one above where it says solid. The third one across is mesh, and then we can go into modify, and we can find the remesh and reduce there. It's the reduce one that we were looking at, really.
What do I do now once I've found the box? It says
Okay.
reduce.
So if I highlight my object and go to modify and then hit reduce, we should have this reduce section here.
Yeah, I've got that.
Yeah. And so basically it's decided it's reducing it down. I'm not going to reduce this again because I've already done it, but you can use the slider basically. If you're on face count, you can change that, and it could be proportion, and it's 25% at the moment. Or I change it to face count, and I can see the actual amounts of triangles that they're going to be.
Sorry, mine doesn't say face count. It says density.
Yeah, that's in okay. Not quite sure why that's the case. Tolerance, I've got proportion, I've got and face count. But density will probably be similar, I would think. If you open up where it says type, what have you got as a choice?
It says adaptive or uniform.
Oh, go for adaptive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here. And that was the remesh type. And above that is another one that says type. And I've got face count here. And I open it up and I've got proportion or tolerance as well. What are your choices there?
It says reduce type, reduce target, mesh face of body.
Try mesh face and body.
That's just in blue.
Okay. You don't have a face count.
No.
Okay, so I must have a completely different setup here than you've got.
Yeah, I've got that. I've got what you've got there, Ian. So Gareth said that it seems like I seem to have the same tools, just had to restart for a new to install a new version, which is quite likely because Fusion are forever updating and fiddling with the software.
That's true, because it's live. We're on the cloud, and our laptops are set up to automatically kind of pick up the new versions as it changes. But if you haven't got it set up to do that, you might actually have one that's a little bit older. I'm not quite sure if that's the case or not, but it is just functionality, I think.
So just also moving on, Amanda's asked, in the animation, it's gone back to a mesh view, but I rendered it in glass. Did I miss a step?
Say that, yeah. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to that animation. My animation that I've just made, which of course I can kind of fast forward by grabbing that through. I'm just going to start it again, but before I do, I'm going to change, and we can do the same thing here, my visual style to wireframe. And if I don't have to make a new animation, I can just publish this, and it's exactly the same thing in wireframe. So I don't have to necessarily make a second film. I can just go straight to publish once I change. So whatever we change in terms of the visual appearance of this, your film is still the same. Okay. So I can go back now and just flick back to visual style shaded and play exactly the same thing. What I've done in the past actually is taken both films out and edited it side by side, so you've got the finished piece moving, and in exactly the same thing you've got the wire mesh moving as well, just so you can see that it's a CAD model, let's say. I think we've hit almost hit time for a break, but I'm just giving you time to ask more questions and see if we can get around some of these problems. You don't necessarily have to make the film right now, but I'd like you all to be able to make a film, or have the knowledge to be able to do it. So I'm going to actually stop sharing for a second, and so we can actually see the kind of written questions and things, just to make sure we're all okay.
Gareth is asking that his is not rendered at all in animation. It's just a green body.
Oh, okay. Well, if you've gone into Glass, sometimes they don't animate particularly well. I've chosen the wood because it was a particularly realistic finish. I'm going to keep mine on actually, and I'm going to go back into render. If we go to Glass and we kind of make it quite high, it doesn't actually, we have to be very, very careful. I'm going to go back now and choose a glass. Was it glass, by the way, you went for, Gareth, or was it just a green object? So there's my glass. Going back now to my animation from there. And as you can see, it's not great. Is that the type of thing you've got?
No, it's not. It seems to be going back to the same display as if I click on design, it goes back to being a green body.
Right.
Whereas in render, I'm getting the wood finish.
Yeah.
But then I go into animation, it goes back to being the green body again.
Okay. Did you copy yours?
No.
Was it just the same one that we've used? It hasn't been copied or anything?
It was. I imported it as a file and then loaded that file the way that Owen suggested. So uploading it straight into Fusion.
Yeah.
And then opening that. And then I reduced the mesh on it.
Yeah.
But it renders fine. But it's when I click on animation, the render disappears.
Okay. I'm just going to go back to our rendered area here and just check one or two things first. So when we come to change our appearance here, just make sure we've got bodies and components hit and not faces.
Yeah, got that.
So it's definitely bodies and components. It's not
Yes.
that there's a problem. I'm going to stick something on there. And when we've done that, we can close that and then just double check our environment there in the settings. Got a ground plane we can turn on and off. I don't think that's got anything to do with it. And then when you go back into design, mine is still there, but yours isn't.
Yes.
I can't answer it. Has anybody else got that problem?
Try restarting it.
I wouldn't restart it. Maybe
Well, not restart. But I mean, I'll reload it and
but try just importing the mesh straight in this time.
Yeah, I'll do that.
If that happens, it may be a bit glitchy here. I'm not quite sure why, but just try bringing the STL straight in. Don't bother about reducing the mesh.
Yeah.
Just pop the material straight on it, and let's see if we can make the film from there, and see if maybe it's just a bit of a glitch from the way that it was put through. Sometimes, to be quite honest, I've got no answer. I mean, in terms of why it's working on one and it's not working on the other, it could be something to do with preferences. It could be something to do with the way I hold my tongue sometimes. I really don't know the answer to that one. But I think the best thing to do is just to try it another way and see if it does the same thing.
Yeah, so Roshan suggests that we should update Fusion. That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I think if we are having glitches, updating Fusion is probably going to be the best option. Mine's automatically getting updated, and it really is confusing. There was one time I was doing a workshop with about 20 students, and I turned around and said, now what you do is, and everything had changed. I couldn't find anything that I was kind of used to. But I mean, it is kind of a wonderful thing in a way, with it being live and it always kind of constantly change, because you do have that access to a supercomputer, let's say. So we're about 5.2, just not far off 5.2. I do apologize for the glitchiness of that, but you can get the basic idea, can't you, that we can forget about not just about scans, but anything that we create in Fusion we can apply a material to and we can create a film. Apologies if that's been a bit frustrating there, but I think maybe, as Owen rightly says, just basically, and Rojan as well, just kind of try updating the software. So I'm going to stop now for 10 minutes, if that's okay. Okay. I think what I'd like to do is just go back to that shoe for a second, quickly run through it one more time, and then we'll move on to Meshmixer, if that's okay with everybody. So hopefully you'll be able to see the shoe, which we've just brought in. I'm just quickly going to go into render, get my materials. I'll go into glass this time. What I want is a kind of a red glass. So I've just popped the first glass that's on there, this heavy color blue there. I'll close that. And I think I'll just give it a little bit of light, as we did before, just a tiny bit, so we can see that it is a blue glass there. Okay. I'll go back into that material. And I want to, when we select something, it comes to the top here, and I can right click on it, and we can edit that material. And in glass, of course, that means we can change the color. What I want is a kind of orangey type glass, something like a topaz type thing. So round about there, and I know this is the type of thing that you can probably buy in terms of billets and things. We can just change make it lighter, darker, and change the intensity of color. There's quite a lot we can do there, really. About there. And then click done. And I just want to see what that looks like when we go into animation from there. Just check when we go to design that it is. And it's not as good there, as you can see. It's not, you can actually see the shape inside, because scans won't do actually inside there. So we've got a real problem with that inner shape there. So to make something in glass, it is actually pretty tricky to do. Go back into our animation, and we can see the same thing there. So we have to be careful when we're actually setting this up that we get a decent image. Probably just put back into render there, and I'll probably make that a little bit darker perhaps. So I'm going to go back into that, edit that just a bit darker. So I've done there. And then see what that looks like. Design. Slightly better. Not brilliant, but slightly better. So we can play with that for ages. I'm not going to do it now because it's going to waste time. So I'm just going to whiz into animation. Start off with it. In actual fact, what's going to happen is it's going to spin because I brought it in, and then that 1 second that I did, if I play that, you can see it spins right the way around there. So that's not ideal. But what I can do, I think, is I can just take that and delete it, and it's disappeared. So in that 1 second, I think I can just hit back like so. And now when we start, it just moves slightly like so. And then I'm just going to physically move it by over, say, 6 seconds. And I'm just going to move it down like so. And then for the next few seconds, I'm just going to zoom in through there. And then another 4 seconds, I'll move it around like so. And we'll just see what it looks like. So we have that slight movement, comes around, zooms in, and moves around that way. And that's ready to publish, if that's what you want, of course. So really quick and easy way of getting information and send it to a client or send it to somebody you're actually designing with. I'm going to stop at that point. And I don't want to save that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up Meshmixer. This is a free bit of software, and we've got limited mesh tools in Fusion 360. And one of the reasons I wanted to show you what we can do in Fusion is because we can reduce the mesh. Because if you find that if you open Meshmixer and try and bring in large files, as I said earlier, it just crashes all the time. But we can either reduce it in mesh here, or we can reduce it in Meshmixer itself as well. So I'm going to close down, I'm going to close that right down for that, and I'm going to open up Meshmixer. And show you around this. Now, has anybody done the Meshmixer 3D collage course with me? Okay, so I'm just going to open it up, and hopefully we've all got the same window. There's a kind of a bunny rabbit thing you can see on one of the boxes in the middle there, bottom left there. It says import bunny. So I'd like you to do that to start with. It's just a very low resolution image file that we've got, and it's just to have a look at the interface. So again, we've got the same box, the dialog box. We can hit home, and we can use the box, and we can left click and move it around. We can also right click and move around as well, which I really like on here. So if you right click and move, you don't have to go to the navigation box, we just move in and out. Same thing with the wheel, you can scroll in and out like so, and move around. Okay, so one of the things that I'd like to show you is the transform. So if we go to look at the left hand side down here, we've got select, we've got mesh mix, which is actually solid shapes. You can open that up and have a look at them. We can bring in shapes there. We've got select, where we can select objects, and you've got the kind of same ball here we can select. Oh, we've got a lasso as well. We're going to go into that in a minute. I'm not sure about stamp. We're going to leave that. We've got edit, and we've got analysis. So analysis is actually really quite important. If you bring a file in, it's worth going to analysis first and go to inspector there, and it will find any problems. And believe me, there will be faults in an awful lot of things you find in Thingiverse. There'll be all sorts of problems, mainly because they've been put together by hobbyists, and there are faults within files, and there is a way of auto-repairing all the problems. If there are too many problems, of course, it might struggle, but it's a good idea when we bring something in to go to analysis first, inspector, and auto-repair anything it picks up. No need to do it here, of course, because this was made within Meshmixer itself. So the next one down from there, or next one up, I should say, from analysis there, is edit. And these are all our tools to edit our object. One of the most important ones is transform, which is the third one down. So if I go up there, there's mirror, duplicate, and transform. If you hit transform, left click it, you've got this very similar tools here. I can move around if I just click on the blue circular thing there. I can take the red and move this way. We can take the Z axis, which is the one going up there, and we can actually raise the thing up in air. It's also hollow there, I hadn't realized. We can bring it down again, and we can bring it round in different areas here. And it also gives us a percentage, an angle as well while we're working. The other thing I'm going to point out as well, it comes in quite handy later on, is we can actually scale. But we can scale in one axis only. We can stretch things, or we can scale it uniformly. And I'll see if I can remember how to do this, because we use so many different CAD systems. I'm going to go to this arrow here, and I can freely move it about. The white arrow there, if I left click on that on move, I can go one way and go and scale it up, and I can move down to scale down. You can see, so we can scale up by using that white arrow there. I think there's a scale here as well where we can just stretch it, as you can see. It's going to control Z back down again. So these boxes here will allow us to stretch in one direction. But if we want to scale all together, then it's the little white box in the middle there. So I'm just going to grab that and I can scale up. Like so. So we have a giant bunny now. Okay. This is a mesh surface or a mesh solid, if you have a solid in here, which means it's made up of triangles. In the same way as when we make something in Fusion and we export it, it's exported as an STL, which will be made of triangles in the same way. This is low poly, so there won't be many triangles in it. So what I'm going to do is just, oh, by the way, you have to hit accept as well when we move things around and change it. So, right. So if I want to maybe have a look at the body itself, we've got some tools where we can select. And at the moment, as I move around, you can see there's this kind of ball, or it is like a ball. If we zoom in, you can see it's on the surface. I can make it larger, where it says size there, and you can see it's really quite big now. And so I can select just one part. But when we select, you can see the edges are kind of made up of triangles. Lots of triangles together to make the patch that you can see there. And of course, when you've selected something, you can just simply hit delete on the keyboard. And now we've got a hole in our object, like so. Still in, I just clear that selection because I'm actually still in that select mode as I was moving things around. I should have come off that really. So we put a hole in there. If you want to patch that, what we'd have to do is go to select again and maybe go smaller. And you can see now the triangles as we move in. We can go even smaller and just pick an individual triangle. There's two triangles. There's one triangle there, and you can see it's made out of triangles. And we can just go around the outside of this. And I can just move around. I don't have to do separate. I just kept my left finger on the mouse as I kind of moved around. Now with this, I think I can fill the hole, but the way to do it is to go up to edit at the top here, and you can see erase and fill. So what it will do is it will erase what I've highlighted, but fill the whole thing. So I'm actually going to click erase and fill, and it's given me a surface again around the top there. So we've just filled that hole there. Let's have a look at some of our sculpture tools now. Oh, you have to accept, by the way, and then clear the selection to show what you've been there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to sculpt, which is the 1, 2, 3, 4th one down, and we're going to pull and push. Now with different types of CAD systems, we've got different types of functionality and different types of ways of making. Rhino is very kind of geometric and very nuts and bolts. Fusion is the same in our design kind of platform, but in the area where you've got the splines and so on, in our sculpt mode, we've got the ability to push and pull an object through surfaces and lines and points, whereas this is actually a mesh CAD system. So you can push and pull around those triangles in a similar way, let's say. But it's certainly a completely different animal to something like Fusion. And that's why this is the type of thing, I suppose, if you were doing animation or if you were doing games design, you would probably use a mesh type CAD system. So some of the systems would be something like 3ds Max, I think it's called, and Maya. They're actually like this. They're made out of mesh. So you're working in a mesh environment. So we're going to go to our sculpt tools, and the first one up here is brushes, and we've got all sorts of different brushes. The first one we're going to go is drag, and we've got our small kind of little ball here. We've got our strength, and we've got our size. So I'm going to zoom in slightly. I'm going to work around here. I'm just going to grab that and pull, and you can see we've just pulled the most awful thing there. We've also got an inflate. So next to that, we can just inflate slightly. I'm looking now at our strength is low, so I'm going to put the strength up a bit. I'm going to put my height, and I'm just going to inflate a larger area. and we put a few of those in. Now, interestingly, these are our inflates. If we actually make our size smaller, and we zoom in now, we can inflate again, a little bit bigger than that. We can inflate again, but if you press, I think it's Control, it deflates. So I'm pressing Control at the same time there, so it's actually pushing down, and I can change so much here. I can make it slightly bigger. I can make the strength further down and deflate there, and you've got a slightly different, as you can see, a slightly different result than you would have had with the smaller, more solid one there. So we can really quickly and effectively put texture onto the surface with this type of modeling. So I hate this thing, it looks awful, so let's actually get rid of it. I'm going to go to select. I'm going to select all of this part here. I'm going to zoom around. So, oh dear, it's moved. I shouldn't zoom around while I'm still doing that. So I'm going to go to a point where I can select most of it there. Oh, what we can do, instead of this kind of, I really don't like trying to select something with a ball. What we can do is get to a point about here, and instead of brush, we can go to lasso. We just click that and we have a lasso now. So what I can do is I can click in dead space, come down to here, 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 and back out again, and I can just link that up, and it will highlight everything. I don't have to go around and highlight the other side. And then, of course, we can do that. I've done the same thing again, sorry. I'm going to do it. I shouldn't go to the navigation box to show you. I should just do it. So I'm going to select, change it so it's a lasso, and I'm just going to come around there, highlight it all, go to edit and edit and fill. And then we've just got rid of that. We've got now a kind of rounded shape there, which I can flatten. Let's just accept that. Let's go back to our sculpt tools. Oh, there's also a little bit of a problem there. As you can see, the edge seems to be a bit damaged there. So I'm going to go to our sculpt, go to our brushes, and down here is a robust smooth. And this is really handy. What you can do here is whatever you can kind of move around, and we can smooth out the whole thing there. If it's too much at that point, I can kind of just move around here so we can get it to the middle here. If that part's too much, then we can go to a flatten brush around here, flatten, and I can flatten that area down. It's like clay. There's a massive difference to anything that we work with on most CAD systems, because it is pretty much like having a piece of clay in front of us and pushing and pulling to be able to get what we want. It's much more natural, I think is the word. I'm not really sure, but it's certainly not a kind of a geometric series of mathematical or geometric decisions, let's say here. This seems to be much more of an aesthetic choice when you push and pull things around. Okay, so have a little play with it and have a look at the brushes. You can see there's a pinch there. The inflate, by the way, does the same thing. You can go in and out, and all of them will go the opposite way if you press Control as well. So I just want to see that that kind of drag again. And instead of dragging a fake, it might go in, I'm not quite sure. Yeah, it does seem to be doing something slightly different rather than dragging it out. And of course, sizes will make all the difference there. So just have a little play on the surface there, try different types. And you've got different types of fall-offs, different shapes there as well. So you can go to a point and so on some of the brushes that we have, I believe. So I'm just going to take that back down and flatten that down a little bit there. And of course, we can turn the strength right the way up and really flatten it very, very quickly. And as you move around, it kind of flattens the whole thing there. And then we can go to our robust smooth and just smooth the whole thing off. So there you go. So my bunny's repaired. So that's the general idea. What we can do now, though, is we can bring in one object and another object and put them together. And I've got a couple of examples here, if I can find them. I'm just going to come out here. So I've got here we go. It's a couple of examples of scans from a scan there, but with some CAD work as well, so you can see through that. Scan butterfly, which is really hard to do, and there's a drill again, which has been scanned and then looked at in glass. I've also got, this is a scanned Statue of Liberty with the head of an eagle and some wings as well, and they've all been kind of put together as an STL and then rendered. And I've got an elephant, a Statue of Liberty there, and an eagle. And these were actually found from Thingiverse. So in a sec, we'll go on to Thingiverse and we'll download some files. The reason I've got the Statue of Liberty is because I know there's loads of faults on it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take my bunny. I think I'll probably delete it somehow. So I'm not sure if I can select it all. Probably there is a select all actually there, but I'm just going to do the lasso thing there and just select it this way. And it's not allowing me, so I'm just going to clear the selection and we'll start again, I think, probably. I'm not going to save it. I'm just going to open a fresh file because it was getting a bit glitchy there. So Meshmixer. Bear in mind, I've got my eagle and Statue of Liberty there. Okay, we'll restore that. We'll just keep it as it is. Okay, so of course I can bring those in. I can import from a desktop. I could probably drag them in actually. But, I think what we'll do is we'll bring the eagle in first, and it has opened too, so it has been really slow. So it's generated a mesh file and it's huge. It's also struggling because I've opened it twice, by the looks of it. There's my eagle, and there, I'm going to close that one down. Let's take this up. And this is a scan in the same way as our other scans, and it's really big. And it glitches quite often. So what we're going to do here, and you can bring in a scan of your own if you wish now, or you can just watch this and we'll do it together in a sec. But there's a couple of things we need to do. We need to go straight to analysis, if you remember, and inspect it and see if there's any problems. So it hasn't found anything. I'm going to hit auto repair all anyway, just in case. And now what I'm going to do is remove the head, if I can. So I'm going to select the body and remove the head, or remove the body and just leave the head, just by going to select. And I'm going to use that lasso again, if you remember. I'm going to come down to about here, and I'm going to join it all up, the outside there. And I have to wait, I think, for it to do that, and it's just done it now. So you can see it's lagging really quite badly because the file is actually quite big. If I just hit delete, or rather than hit delete, I'm going to go to edit at the top here and erase and fill. It should erase everything and fill the gap at the bottom, but again, I'm waiting a long time for it to do that. Just have to be a little bit patient.
Just out of interest, in how many polygons does that model have?
Do you know what? I didn't check. It's got a heck of a lot. Probably
So,
reduced it at the beginning, but I'm going to reduce it once I've got rid of the head, I think.
I think you can see it at the bottom right-hand part of the screen. It'll tell you vertices and triangles.
Yes. Yeah, down the bottom here. So it's a heck of a lot. It's a huge file. I know it's a huge file. The Statue of Liberty one is even worse. And this is the problem when we're trying to mix different files. especially when they're scanned files. You know, we've got real problems. You can see there's this kind of lump underneath here that's been created. We can reduce that. There's also a fault in there where it seems to have be a bit of a problem there. So you can see there's a bulge at the bottom here, which I can reduce, I believe, if I slide that, but it is lagging again. It's really, really slow and lagging quite badly. So now it's moved, it's gone too far there. I'm going to take that back up, and you can see this is the type of thing I'm after, where again, I can't move it. Just waiting for it to get sorted, and then I can probably move it down there and have a look at it. That's a little bit better. I think I'm going to accept that. And again, I'm going to wait. And it's got that little circle of death there. Now I've got a lot open at the moment, so it's not usually this bad. But what I think we'll probably have to do is maybe fix a few problems with it. But we could reduce the mesh now, I would believe. Not quite sure how. So I'm going to, only because I can't remember, I'm going to clear my selection there. And let's just see if we can find it. Okay, I'm going to go to edit, because it will be an edit. I'm going to look at, see if we've got any mesh tools in here. Can't find it. Maybe if we select it first, then we've got the ability to reduce mesh at that point. So I'll actually select it all, I think. And there will be a shortcut to select all, but I'm actually going to use that lasso thing again.
Yeah, so there is a tool under select, and it is remesh.
Yeah. I just have to wait for that to select. It just seems to be glitching quite badly, doesn't it? Bring our bird in here. Okay. If that's not working, perhaps we'll just do it the old-fashioned way. It really is glitching. I do apologize, everyone. It's not even allowing me to. It's just getting both. It's quite a weird thing going on there. Right, let's move it. I'm going to go clear this completely, go to edit and transform. Okay. Okay, let's go now to, we can go to make solid. Just to make sure. Okay. And we can hide the other one. So this is a solid eagle. Let's see if that's any better now. And I'm just going to try and tidy up the corners of this part here. Using our sculpt tools. I'm going to go into brushes, and I'm going to go into that kind of robust smooth. It's massive, is the size of that now, so we can bring that down. And bring our strength up as well. I just want to smooth off this area here because it doesn't look happy at all. I'll move around. So otherwise, you might find ourselves with a real problem. My apologies, it's really quite glitchy this, and I'm not quite sure why it's not behaving itself. It may be because I've got lots of other things open, but we'll see. Right, let's see if we can select parts of this now, if it's behaving itself. Let's go to select. Okay, let's do our lasso again. Yep, that's selected immediately. If we go to edit now, we can modify. Lots of things here. Edit here, and where's reduce there? So we had to select it and then go to reduce. The reason I couldn't get to reduce is it wouldn't allow me to select it. So we can hit reduce there. And now we have the same kind of percentage of 50%. That's absolutely fine. So it's just telling me that it's reducing to 50%. I'm going to accept that. And you won't see any difference in the actual object, but it is 50% less. And it's actually moving around a little bit easier as well now and less glitchy. So I've got the head there to deal with. There's also a little bit of a problem in the corner underneath there. So I can just get rid of that mark there by going to sculpt. And we'll go to that robust smooth as well, but we'll make our size smaller and our strength down, and we'll just sort that bit out there, as you can see. So a very quick and easy way of dealing with faults and stuff like that. So what we're going to put this head on, well, I mean, I've got an elephant somewhere I can bring in, so I'm going to do just that. I'm going to go to import. I'm going to append rather than just import. So let's go to file at the top here, and we've got import there. And it's asking me to either replace or append, and it's append we want to bring it into the same one. So with here, I'm looking for an elephant that I found on Thingiverse as well. There he is. And open. It's positioned far away. I'm going to say yes, automatically try to repair it, but it's going to be like further distance away anyway. And there it is. And I'm going to move it, of course. Now, as you can see, one of them's gone dark, the other one's lighter. And as you can see, we've got the elephant here. We can turn it on and off. It's the elephant that is now active. So I'm going to move the elephant around now, position it, scale it, so we can put the head of the eagle on top of the elephant. That's the idea anyway. I hope. It's got ears as well, that might be a bit tricky, but we're going to give it a try. So I'm going to go to edit and transform. And most of the functions we're going to need are going to be in this transform area. I think what I'll do is just scroll out and see where I am in relation to the base there. And I think our elephant could just do with standing up. Right, so I'm going to go 180 degrees. Just roughly there. And I'm going to bring our elephant down to about here so we can see it. Obviously, it's got to be bigger. So I use the green, sorry, the white box in the middle there, and I can just scale up and down from there. And what I might do now is just move the eagle out of the way. So I'm going to go to the eagle head solid there, and then go to edit and transform in the same way. Transform, probably move the head around. And also if I go to the top, I can move the head around this way so it's facing the same way. And I can move the whole thing forward for now, out of the way, and we'll remove the head of the elephant. We might be able to keep the ears, let's see. So back to the elephant. Okay, I'm going to move that out of the way, so it's over there. And I'm going to try and remove the head. The ears are really tricky though. We're going to try and keep the ears, which is really daft, I know. But it is just a demonstration of what's possible. So let's go now to, this is quite a low res file as well. It's not too big, so it shouldn't be too glitchy. Let's go to select. And again, I'll hit the lasso because I want to come all the way around. But I don't want to hit the ear that's on the other side there. So I might just move around, as you can see, and then just kind of come in so that I can follow this ear almost around. And then I can come around the top there. That's taken all of that part, but it's left the rest of the trunk for some reason. I can't have got that very well. Let's just check that. We might have to do that again. Just come out a little bit and around to there. And I think from that point there. No, it's really starting to mess up now. So I'm going to try that again. Select, lasso. And again, it's not allowing me to do that. clear selection. Right. There you go, it's working now. Don't know why it didn't work before, but it didn't. Again, this software is free. Doesn't mean it's perfect. There you go, you've got the whole front of the head there. I'm not going to move it around and chance it going glitchy. I'm going to go straight to edit there and erase and fill. And we're going to move around now. We can see, yep, that's pretty good. And I quite like that bulge as well, because it probably would help us a little bit there. So I'm going to accept that. Okay. And clear the selection. And now I'll take the head of the eagle. And we'll go to edit and transform. I'm going to move that out of the way so we can see the actual thing. And I'm going to move that down like so. Bring it into position. As we move around, we'll probably find that we're way off there. So what we can do here is take advantage of that idea that we can scale just in one direction. Move that around like so. Drag it over ever so slightly. And now I think I might squeeze it in. Now what I'm doing there, of course, is I'm just using the box there to squeeze inwards, just to kind of get rid of that problem there. And of course we can go up and down here slightly, just ever so slightly there. And we can zoom in a bit further. Move around. A little bit more there, perhaps. Could have been taken off. Might scale it down a little bit, actually, thinking of this, because it is a bit problematic there. So perhaps we'll scale everything down just a touch, like so. I could carry on, and I could go back and I could take parts off behind the ears and so on, but to be honest, we haven't got time for that. Otherwise, we'd be all day making an elephant with an eagle head. So let's actually say that that's okay. It's not perfect, I know, but it'll do for now, just as a demonstration. So I'm going to accept that, and we have two objects together, and I'm pretty sure we can combine these. So if I can left click, hit the elephant and the head, all I've got is the eagle, left click on this box here to get them both. Obviously, fifth one down here is combine. I'm going to hit that. And now we have the one object, which is an elephant STL, that we can save and send to our 3D printer. We can put wings on there as well, of course. I'm just looking at the time, and we have got time to do that. We did say that in 10 minutes from now, we're going to break off, and those that want to watch the football can, and the rest of us are going to make our own version of this. So I'm just going to see if I can bring the wings in. So I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to go to Import, Append again, and I'm looking for the wings that I'd already brought. And again, they came from Thingiverse. I'll open that up. And they are, they're really small. So I'm going to go to Edit and Transform. Just take them right at the top there, and let's have a look where they are. And again, remember we were saying, no, it comes into Fusion, but you have to then align it. That's exactly what we're doing now. We're aligning something, but to the model that we're making. So I want to be able to move around, and it's not easy to do here. So I'm just going to drag it around, have a look at these, and I'll make it bigger to start with so we know what we're dealing with. Just takes a couple of goes there to do that. I can see it needs to come down to about there. We can move around and we can see roughly where it is. We can drag it forwards, move that around, and we can just bring that round ever so slightly and down and make it a bit bigger perhaps. And as you can see, it's just a case of placing now as we go around. Just need to drag over ever so slightly so it's in the middle there, I think. Okay. A little bit of a monstrosity, of course. But the point is that even though this does look quite odd, let's say, we've got the ability now to put 3D collages together with partly things we've scanned, partly things we've designed in Fusion, and partly things that we've taken from open source libraries. So what I'm trying to say is that this is one way of kind of moving very quickly into CAD and 3D printing and machine making and so on, or making with machines, without having an in-depth knowledge of CAD, without having years and years of experience. We can actually just 3D scan things. We can bring things into CAD, merge them together and send them to the 3D printer. So I'm going to do just that. I'm going to accept that. I would spend a lot more time on it normally, but I'm just going to shift to the elephant and hit combine again. And of course, I've got everything I need as one STL file now. The STL eagle there, I'm actually just going to delete, I think. I'm going to hit delete there. So I've just got one single file, which I can now take out. So I'm going to go to export, to the bottom there. I'm saving it as an OBJ. It could be an STL. As you can see, we can save it to STL, but I'll leave it as OBJ. And I'll call it illegal thing. Right, and that's going to go onto the desktop as an OBJ and save. Just to prove the point now, we can open Cura, which as we know is our 3D printing software. Takes a sec to open up. And there it is. So from there we can go to File, Open Files, from our desktop. Open. And he's too big and he's outside the area, but we can actually sort that out. So what we'll do is we'll highlight him and we'll go to move. Can't really see anything there. So what I'm going to do is drag him over and then bring that back. And we'll reduce our scale of our object so it's within the actual areas of our 3D printer. So there's our scale. I think we can just do one. It'll go uniformly, won't it? And it'll drop on there. And there's our object ready to print. Of course, it's going to need support material under there. And we can put that in quite happily. And I'll probably put it in on the Ultimaker 3, actually. This is the 2 extended, which will put the material supports in with the same materials. But we can have that in a water-soluble PVA. But we can do that quickly. We can just say, okay, well, it's going to need generate support. That's fine. So we'll slice our object. Might have to be a bit bigger to make this work, but let's see if it does. Takes a bit of time, as you can see. And there we have it. We can go to preview there, can't we? And there we have our object. I'm going to zoom in a bit now, just to prove that everything is one solid kind of file. We can go, just move that over slightly, and we can just drop these down so we can see the support materials in the way a little bit there, isn't it? We might be better turning that off just to show you the file, but there's the head of the elephant going into the head of the eagle, and you can see it's not got anything between. It's just seen as one solid object from the feet to the head there, and back up to the wings, which sprout from that point. Probably better if we did take that off, actually, but there you go, that's job done. So I'm going to come off now and stop sharing. Come back to you guys. Apologies, that was kind of like massively quick, but I am actually wanting to stop at this point and give everyone the chance, if you want to go and watch the match, this is a good time to do that, because we're recording anyway. We're going to carry on, and those of us that want to carry on, we'll actually do your own model, and we'll be here to support you and give you help with that as well. How does that sound?
Before you go and do that, just to make mention about what's going to be coming up next week, and basically what we're going to be looking at in terms of Fusion 360, we're going to be looking at the form tool and how we can do 3D sculptural modeling, which in some respect has come from Meshmixer. We're also going to be looking at inspection, but in terms of the kind of demonstrative stuff, we're going to look at CNC machining and how we create files ready for machining. And that's about it.
And Ali said, thank you very much. Catch up before next week. Yes, I'm going to carry on anyway to past. And I think what I'd really love for those of us who want to stay, if you want to go to Thingiverse and bring something in, or you can bring the skull and something else. I'm sure Vicky won't mind if we don't kind of publicize what we do. It's actually, Vicky's scan. So I think we should. It's a little bit like photography. We shouldn't really kind of use somebody's file, let's say, without crediting them and asking permission. So we can go into Thingiverse and we can bring down anything really that we want to put together and have a bit of a play with that.
I don't mind people using the file, Ian.
Thank you, Victoria. I mean, it really is lovely. I was trying to figure out how on earth am I going to show people how to do scanning, without actually having the machine running for an hour and a half or something, but I think to have the same file and we can all look at that and see what we can do with that is really good.
Something that should be noted, actually, I'll reiterate this again next week, is that when we create 3D scans and this kind of digital information, that the polygon count often created far exceeds the resolution of 3D printers and of milling machines. And so we tend to restrict how many polygons we tend to deal with. The more polygons you have, the slower software will tend to operate. Well, obviously, depending on your processor. We have a ceiling of about 600,000 polygons. We can go to about 2 million if need be, but generally speaking, we don't need anything more than that. You will never see it in terms of a 3D printed or CNC machined item.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm going to 3D print something from a scan, I generally drop it down 70%. 70% in terms of the faces, and I can't really tell. You can go up to 70% anyway, but the file size is just so much easier to cope with. And as you can see, when we brought that first eagle into Meshmixer, everything just slowed right down. The functionality just went to pot, and it wouldn't do what it was told.
The other thing to be said about scan resolution and image resolution, mesh resolution, is that what can be overlooked is that you can reduce the polygon count on something to good effect. So it tends to make an object a lot more abstract, and that, as I said, that can be used and it can be printed.
Yeah, certainly for glass sculpture as well, you can take an object and you can take it right down to just a few polygons and have this kind of incredible kind of geometric shape that could have come from anything, really. It's quite a nice way of actually working, to be honest. So anybody who wants to watch football, please, with our blessings, go and watch England. But those of us that want to carry on, well, if you wouldn't mind just going to Thingiverse and bringing 1 or 2 files in, that'd be really, really cool. I'm here till 8:30 to give you a hand. So what I think what might be a good idea if I just went to Thingiverse perhaps and grabbed something and brought it in and you guys could follow me. How does that sound?
Do it. Try and grab something that's an open mesh as well. Make it really interesting.
Yeah.
If you can.
Yeah. Shall I share my screen again? Can you see that all right, Owen? The Google thing?
Yeah, totally.
Thingiverse. All right. Has anybody got any ideas what they'd like? We can get anything here.
An elephant's body with an eagle's head on it.
Oh, I think we've done that one. Done that to death, Owen. We'll try and pull teeth out of the elephant with the eagle head.
About vacuum cleaner attachments.
I'm going to go for vacuum cleaner. And see what we have. We can get anything, really. Of course. I spelled that wrong. Okay, we have some attachments, Owen. Any particular favorites? I'm going to go for a turbine rotary tool and see what we get. And of course, when you've selected what you want, you can download it. And it is taking a long time. I think I might have to shut 1 or 2 of these programs down. And there we have it. And we just go to download all files there. And I'll just left click on that. Okay, and it'll come down the bottom here. Open. And there it is, turbine rotary. This will be the zip file, and in there will be lots of different information. We're not going to need it all, but we'll need to take that zip file, and I'm actually going to, I think we'll close that down actually. I'm not going to save that. And I'm just going to take it onto my desktop for now and open that up and see what's in it. And as you can see, we open that up. We've got lots and lots and lots and lots of things. It's not the whole thing at all. So we got different aspects of that. This might be a little bit of a pain to do. Let's see what's the biggest ones. Front housing. Okay, I think we'll probably end up having to bring these in bit by bit, to be honest. So I'm just going to take one part, one of the bigger ones, the front housing, let's say.
Well, you could the spin top rotor, make a hat for yourself.
Spin top rotor it is. We'll take them out. We'll take them both in actually and see what we can do with that. So we should have both of those on our desktop. Let's have a look. There's spin top rotor and the turbo front. Just going to open Meshmixer. Might be better bringing that into Fusion, to be honest, but with it being more engineering, I'll bring it into Meshmixer anyway. They shouldn't be too big files anyway. They're not going to be huge files. And again, Meshmixer is taking an age to open, so I click on it again and 2 lots open. Why? But there you go. Okay, and I can import now. I'm going to go for turbo front housing. Open that. There it is. Ooh. Doesn't look right at the top there, does it? But this is a kind of weird thing. That is probably correct. It just looks odd with the triangles, the way it's been made. And I'm just going to close the one behind it. There you go. Okay, so let's bring the other one in. Zoom out slightly. File, import, and append. And I'll see what we have here. It was a spin top rotor, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, now these look really low poly objects, don't they?
They're probably made in SketchUp.
Yeah, it looks that way because they're very, very low poly. So I'm just going to stick them together some way. I might stretch them around and twist them or whatever. If we have got any twisting tools in here, I don't know if we have or not. But I'm going to go to edit there and transform, and I can of course move that around to my heart's content. So I'm not sure if we've got that oh, we have. We've got some really strange tools in here which aren't really compatible for what I'm going to do here. But even so, let's see, take that up and take the other one and move that one. I'm going to go to edit and transform there. I can take that up as well, and hopefully now seems to have clicked into place, doesn't it? But okay, I'm going to highlight both of them. Can I transform them both at the same time? Looks like I can. I can move them both there. Accept that, that's fine. So it's not really giving me much to play with. I was going to go for more kind of natural forms and things I could really start to pull around, like arms. You can move the arm in terms of where it's going. So just wondering whether I can find something like that to bring in. Because I think I'd probably be better working with this in Fusion, wouldn't you say, Owen? In terms of,
I think you're a tough crowd, mate.
Yes.
I thought you were going to mess around with it, but you know.
Well, I'm going to mess around with it, so I'm going to take this bottom one here and I'm going to transform. What I really want to do is have it go to transform here. I want to start to stretch different parts. Only let me go that far there, so let's bring everything down here and just stretch the whole thing up there. So it is pretty powerful when it comes to playing with mesh objects, because obviously we've changed that pretty much beyond where it was. Let's accept that actually. Zoom in. Right, so what can we do now? We can bend this probably. We can split it and bend it. We'll go to select, and I'm going to lasso through there, select all that, and it's selected the whole darn thing, which I didn't want, so I'm going to zoom around and just take a less of that. So it's going to be the lasso again, start from the top this time, but I want to go through at an angle there and back. And it's still selecting the whole thing. I wonder why. Clear selection. I wonder if it's because I have actually dragged it up that far. One more time. It doesn't seem to be working, this lasso thing. I go to edit and transform as I did last time. And just move it slightly. Then accept that and then see if the select works this time. No. Doesn't want to at all. All right, let's do it a different way. We'll use the big size. No, it won't let me select any of that. Okay, I'm going to clear that selection. I'm going to make it solid. Edit. analyze it first and see if there's any problem with it. Inspector, auto repair. Let's now go and say make solid and just see if that helps. It did last time, I think. Gonna go to make solid, checking for errors, and there's a strange thing going on there. So accuracy, gonna turn that up a little bit and update that. Okay, let's see what we've got now. So it's definitely an error in this. As you can see, there's a hole there anyway. I wonder now if we look at it, if I can actually take part of that. Accept. Let's go to our select tool and see if this works now. And for some reason, the tool seems to be working perfectly now. So there was a real glitch in there, and the glitch was because the model wasn't correct, wasn't a solid. There was a problem, and it might have been crazy because I stretched it so far as well. So I'm going to change this, but I'm going to transform it in a different way. I'm going to go to Edit, and where we saw Erase and Fill, there are other things as well. We've got Deform here, and we're going to go Deform and Transform, and I'm actually going to stretch this out and around and out and around and out. Bring it down a bit more actually, and we can, I think, just go from the, there you go, we can move it around to our heart's content with that red one there. I'm going to move it around a little bit more, bring that down, more maybe. Okay, I'm going to accept that. And I'm still in that kind of thing, so we're going to have to clear that selection, of course. And there you have a complete change, and it has got faults. I can see that already, so we need to go in and fix those around here. So I'm going to actually probably use that tool that was in Sculpt. I'm going to go to brushes and robust smooth, and that's what I'm going to use just to sort out that. And I'm going to get rid of that kind of harshness as well around here. Smooth everything off. We can move around here and go to the other side as well. I'm going to smooth everything down there as well. Turn that around. Up. Zoom in. And again, smooth everything around here just to make sure nothing particularly bad. And around again. And again, I can smooth all that down as well. So I'm not quite sure how to fix that. Well, I am actually. Let's fix it. Let's go in and look at that. So, as I say, I wasn't quite expecting such a kind of a industrial type thing, but I mean it still kind of shows you can do some amazing things. Imagine if you had an arm, for instance, you could take it from this point, you can move the arm down, you can actually move a character around, and we could actually take this and inflate it as well wherever we want to, and then robust smooth over it. And it is really like playing with clay, but it's actually playing with something that is actually quite a complex form there inside. But it does have its problems, and they will need to be addressed and fixed. Just down the bottom here, we do have an issue. So what I'm going to do is just come up so we can zoom in. I'm going to drop down my size to select. We could just select the whole thing there, and it's immediately, I was going to actually take that and, sorry, it's doing all sorts of weird things there. I think I'd like to make that a bit smaller, but it seems to have kind of taken that and immediately filled it. If you go to edit and erase and fill just to check, because that's what I was going to do, and then accept and clear the selection, you can see we've got rid of that issue, but it is glitching, as I say. Okay. There we have our issue at the top there that needs to be sorted. And I think when we went to make it a solid, there are problems in here. And I don't know if you remember, but there was a accuracy within that as well. So when we actually created a solid, I turned the accuracy up a little bit. I could have turned it up a lot more, and these things would have been far more like the original, I would think. So we do have an issue there that needs to be addressed. I'm not going to do it now because it'll take quite a while, but it probably would be a case of looking at this, filling out from that point. Maybe we could just do a little bit just to show while we're here. We can see another hole there, can't we? So let's just patch that hole up. We go to select, and we're far too big, so we're quite small now, and it's tiny. And we can select around it. And it doesn't see it as a hole, as you can see, but I'm still going to go erase and fill. And also, we might have to push that up a bit, so we've got a bulge there that we can play with and move in and out. Accept that. And that's kind of nice rounded kind of finish there. And of course, this lot here would have to be addressed separately, but it would have been easier, I think, to turn that accuracy right up, I think, when we turned it into a solid. So again, that's quite an important thing when we bring something into Meshmixer, is perhaps we should go through analysis, check that it is okay, and then make it into a solid. I think I'm going to bring something in now that I know is a problem. Just going to clear that selection. I'm going to close this down completely now. I'm not going to save it, I think. And it's the Statue of Liberty, which I think had loads of problems. So I'm going to open up Meshmixer one more time. And I'm going to wait this time, so it's just one that's open. Any questions or any problems at the moment? Sometimes when we bring a file in, it's not a solid, it's a series of surfaces. I think Owen mentioned that. And the easiest way to get around that is just to hit make solid. But as I say, we'll take the accuracy right up when we do that.
I guess people are just playing. I'm messing around with bread.
Yeah, playing is a good thing. I mean, it's the best way of learning as well, I think, is just to bring things in and play. I'm going to try to import the problematic one, which was the Statue of Liberty, I think. And this one has been a problem in the past. There were issues with it. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to Analysis and Inspector. And it's found problems. You can see it's pointing to all those problems that it's found. So immediately I know there's some issues here. So I'm going to hit Auto Repair All to start with. And it might get them all, it might not. But I'm also going to zoom in now so we can see the detail here. That detail might actually reduce when we make it into a solid. It's not a solid at the moment, or we're not sure if it is. So if we go Done, and then we go to Edit and Make Solid, watch what happens to the, let's zoom down so we can see the detail there. Let's see what happens to that detail when we make solid. It doesn't give you a chance, it automatically goes into this, and you can see it's really lost a lot of that definition, which is what happened with the tool that we brought in, if you remember. So I'm actually going to look at the solid accuracy, which is the top one here, and drag that right the way over, make it as accurate as we can. There's also a mesh density, and we can increase the mesh density as well. It's making the file bigger, but we can increase that mesh density. I'm going to hit Update, and we'll see what it does. And it should be better. It's not going to be great, but it's going to be better than it was, of course. And of course, it's going to take some time to do that. And sometimes you get a blank screen, you just got to hit the mouse and it comes back. And you can see that now is a solid, and it's not bad. I don't think that's bad at all, actually. The last time I did this, I lost the points on the top there, so it's not bad. I think I changed the accuracy, but not the mesh last time, the mesh density. So that is a perfect model, ready to be played around, or ready to be 3D printed, or ready to be changed in some way. We can put the eagle head on that, no problem at all. So pleased with that, actually. It's the first time I've actually got that to come out well, with all the faults that it had as well. So just to recap, bring your model in, go to analysis and fix any faults, then go to make solid, but make sure that when you get that original kind of change that accuracy right up, and change the mesh density if it's needed as well to get a good result. Otherwise you'll get like a chocolatey kind of melted affair. So I think that's all I'm going to do in Meshmixer there. So I'm going to come out now and just be there if you have any questions and so on. I'm actually going to save this one because it's not bad at all. So I'm going to go to export, OBJ, and I'll call that statue of L edited. Is pretty well edited, I think. Meshmixer. So let's just save that. Okay, so we still have some people on. We've got Gareth with us, Rojan, and Amanda. Amanda, I'll send you your file tomorrow morning if that's okay for the glass. In fact, I might do it now actually while we've got time.
When you imported the file and you did the inspection on it to look for errors, is it worth doing that for files you've downloaded even if you're going to load them into Fusion to look for errors? Sort of intermediary step.
I do, but if I'm taking things into Fusion, I found that Fusion doesn't seem. I think it's almost like, because it's Autodesk as well, it seems to be quite intuitive. I'm not sure if it fixes faults automatically, but I've not come across many faults within Fusion.
Okay.
In fact, what I've had is things where I've taken things out of Rhino into Cura. I've found that there have been glitches. So all I've done is put it through Fusion and back out again, and Fusion fixes them.
Got you.
Automatically.
Okay.
I don't know why, but it just seems to. Oh, and have you got anything you wanted to add to that?
Yes, I mean, it's an interesting point that often we use software as a way of checking files. So I use Rhino to check, I use those to check vector files before they go on to, say, being laser cut or even for machining purposes. But it's a really brief thing. So it's not unusual to use software in that way, without even using that software to manipulate anything.
Yeah,
totally. I don't see it as being a bad thing to, like what you're doing, it to take, say, particularly mesh files into like Meshmixer before bringing them into Fusion, primarily because of the amount of tools that are available within Meshmixer itself.
Yeah, you've got to remember the Meshmixer is Autodesk as well. So what's happening, I think, is that the mesh tools in Fusion, even though they're fairly limited in comparison, you'll see all of that functionality in Fusion soon. And eventually Meshmixer won't be supported because they'll have just moved it all into Fusion. But certainly if I'm doing certain things, I've realized that I'm trying to use text, for instance, and it's gone into a bit of software and it's not reading, it's filled in a gap or something. It's odd things that happen. So I kind of took them into Fusion then back out again, and it's not there. The fault isn't there. So yeah, as Owen says, sometimes Meshmixer is a really good one if it's a scan, or if it's something you've downloaded as an STL. Because let's face it, working with STLs in most CAD systems, it's like working on PDFs. You've got hardly any functionality in comparison to something you've designed within that CAD system itself. So it's a really good thing to have. Am I still presenting? I'm just hit that stop presenting there. So it's a really good kind of tool to have for anything to do with STL files or scans. Meshmixer is a really good tool, but I imagine that over the next year or two, all that functionality will be housed within Fusion 360. Yeah, I think the file inspection is a good thing. I'd forgotten how good that was, actually.
I still don't know what the problem is that I was having earlier on with Fusion, because I tried downloading that file, the turbine file,
Yeah.
and when I imported it as a mesh, it would render in the render screen, but it won't render in the it won't stay rendered in the design screen.
Yeah.
When I converted it to a body, it will stay rendered in that screen.
Ah, right, okay.
And if I create a new body, that will stay rendered in that screen. So it's something it's not liking about it being a mesh rather than being a body thing.
Yes, yeah, I see. I mean, that is a bit glitchy, I've got to say, because I wasn't expecting that. I really wasn't. I do like the loaf of bread that has been hollowed, and yeah, wonderful loaf of bread that you can live in.
You've taken all the best bit out there. You've left the crust and taken all the good stuff.
That's what my son used to do. Get the bread and eat the middle bit, and just leave the husk.
Yes, yeah, that would teach him. No hairs on his chest, then. No?
I heard it made your hair curly.
It does indeed.
Yes, unfortunately so. Yeah, well, that was my endeavours, playing around with a loaf of bread, turning it into a house for my mice.
Are there any sensibly priced 3D scanners around? Because the one you've got there isn't exactly cheap, is it?
No, that one was about 10 grand, 10.5 grand. The Sense scanner, there will be a modern version of this, and this was about 300 quid with all the software, and I loved it. I think it's fantastic.
The question is, what do you mean by inexpensive? There is software whereby you can utilize your phone. I can't remember what that was, although we have been asked to look at it. Software, I can't remember what it is. The boss is the one to ask about that, because he's been using something.
Yeah, there are free apps out there, and the iPhone has got a scanner on it, but it does look like everything's been in a fire to me. It just does. You know, you try and get flat surfaces, they always look as if the fire damaged. So, you know, that kind of thing, you know, you could probably pick up something, I would imagine, between £200 or £300, but there are free things out there where you can use your phone as well.
I mean, the other alternative is, I suppose it depends what you want to scan, but you become a member of a Fab Lab where they have scanners, like a member of our Fab Lab, which will be discussed at some point.
Yeah. I mean, the interesting thing about this is that I've scanned a few things by hand, but you notice it went out of tracking, and that's down to the software, you know, that it's really glitchy. But with this one, if I just move ever so slightly, I lose tracking almost immediately because it's so accurate, which is why we use it on the turntable more often than not. But you can get good kind of handheld scans with it. But you're talking kind of 10.5 grand, I think, for this one. Oh, no, sorry, 5.5. 10.5 is the Pro Plus one.
I think 5.5 is even just slightly beyond my my budget for at home.
I do understand.
There was an archaeological group who were scanning objects they'd found up on Dartmoor, and they were using some software which you take a series of photos using just a standard SLR camera or any camera, and you take photos from lots of different angles, and it then stitches them together in the software. And apparently it's pretty accurate. It's not obviously as accurate as that, but...
Around about 5 or 6 years ago, we had a scanner which did exactly that. It took photographs, and you would put coloured pins and attach them, you know, by hand to the photograph, and it would then try and stitch it together. And after a whole afternoon, you would get something that looked awful and throw it out the window.
Some of the stuff they've done is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, there are things out there that will work from photographs, definitely.
Yeah. I think it all comes down to the resolution of the photo. The higher the resolution of the photo that they were using, the better the results they got. And the other benefit that they got from it was a lot of the scanners are only creating the mesh, whereas this will actually put some texture to it as well.
Yeah.
Because it's all done in software.
Yeah.
I think as software and processing becomes has become a lot more sophisticated, that these kind of technologies have moved on. I remember about 17 or so years ago, in fact actually longer than that, I was maybe 17 or so years ago, whereby a photo, you could take a photo of, say, like a tap, and that could be extruded, like somehow. I don't know how that worked, but it was something that was possible. But to limited effect. What's worth mentioning is that we do actually have another scanner, and it's an environmental scanner for scanning rooms and spaces, including outdoor spaces. But like with all scanners, it does generate point cloud information, and lots of it. So
we need the special.
Is that a LiDAR scanner?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
I think it is a LiDAR scanner we've got. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're waiting for a very powerful computer to turn up.
We haven't even used it yet. We haven't even got it out of the box yet.
Yeah, we just can't process the information that's coming out. That would come out of it, not successfully.
Yeah, we've been using them at work. We're currently building the new refueling facility for the MOD over at Tor Point, and we've got a whole series of pipework installed, and we need to build a steel gantry walkway around what we've already got there. And so we got a surveyor in with LiDAR scanners, and they then created a point cloud of our pipework, which we were then able to send off to the designers, and they could create a 3D model of all of the pipework, an accurate model. We've already got a 3D model of the whole project,
fantastic.
but it's not accurate enough for what we needed. So we had to do an as-built survey, and they were then, from that point cloud, were able to find the gaps and insert steel work, so they could come up with a design.
Yeah, sounds fantastic. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting that out of the box.
That'd be interesting.
Well, everyone, we've just hit 8:30. So thanks for staying with us. And we're going to be back again next week, of course, when Owen is leading the next session, the final section, actually.
It is, and I'll be looking at CNC machining live. That's the plan.
Excellent.